everybody, welcome back. Today's a new episode of B is for Build. In today's episode, well, how about in this month's section of episodes, we are going to be focused on making this car run and drive. So in previous episodes, we've been fooling around with some body stuff, some lowering stuff, you know, building the frame, building the suspension. Now it's time to focus our attention. The whole month of September is about making this car run and drive as we can. The most we can to get the most running and driving functionality that we can. We got 25 days left. So anyways, today I'm gonna start by working on wiring, and if Eric shows up, he's gonna be working on steering. Stay tuned. So a little bit of background on what we're doing. I laid out a schedule. September, the whole month was meant for kind of running and driving, getting the car going type of things. October, like I just said, body work. So moving into the running and driving thing, all an engine needs to run is air, fuel, spark, right? Well, the air is just all around us. We're not on Mars or anywhere else, so it has enough oxygen to breathe, and although we don't have the right sensors that we need and all that type of stuff in the right tune, it will breathe and it will run the way it is right now. Fuel and spark. So we don't have a fuel system in the car whatsoever. We do have a fuel cell that some of you guys have maybe seen. It's off camera, it's over here. So we need to re-engineer our custom fuel cell to match up with the BMW's fueling system to pump fuel to the engine. So that gets us air, that gets us fuel. And then spark, you can look at spark as, well, it's obviously the spark that blows up the air and the fuel, but you can look at spark as kind of the brains of the car as well. So that means you got to bring over the ECU, and we need to bring over all the computers, all the controls, all the wiring that controls the whole brains of the car to tell it when to do the sparking. And then at the very, very source of that is a 12-volt battery. So air, fuel, spark, that's what we're really going to be focused on. And then any of the blockers that will stop the computer from allowing it to start. For instance, if you don't bring the steering column, you don't have the little key fob thing that reads that, hey, the keys in the car. So we got to do those types of things as well. This month, we're going to be very focused on this type of stuff. It can get a little bit in depth and it can get a little bit monotonous, but I'm going to try my best not to, and I'm going to try and keep everybody kind of on the same page so everybody kind of knows what we're doing and why we're doing it. So why I'm going after wiring right now is so we can get the brains in the computer so we can tell it how to spark. Brains into the car, not into the computer. Anyways, so to do that, I got to jump out to the M5 right now, and we're going to start taking a look at all the wiring that's left in the M5. Like 400 yards of it. In the M5, we have what looks like a chaotic mess of wires already, and I hate to say it, but we're not even scratching the surface of how many wires are in this car. You still have wires that are going to go forward and go into the engine bay, although not that many, because the engine has its own wiring harness that plugs in right over there. And then we have wires that are going to run down the floorboards and back to the back of the car to do different things in the back. And then we also have wires that run underneath the car that go to a bunch of different sensors down there. So we got a lot of work ahead of us. I'm going to start over here in the passenger side section, freeing up a lot of these things, and you're trying to kind of trace everything back to the one main bundle of wires. Well, I'm stuck in a really weird spot. So this is the seat, and the front bolts were accessible, so I got them out. There was one there and there was one there. The rear ones are covered by the seat, and I have to get the seat out because there's so much wiring that runs along here and through the back. I just have to get access to it. So what I would normally do is come inside the seat here, and I would look for the motors, and I would grab the wires that go into the motor that runs the track, and I would apply 12-volt power to that wire, hoping to move that motor forwards or backwards to get the seat out of the way. I can't do that though because these seats have like 6 motors in them or something, because they have 1 million way adjustability here. So I'm not going to be able to, I mean, I can see 2 motors right here, and they both don't operate the track, so I can't even see the other motors. So I'm going to try like a really long shot thing. I'm going to pop the trunk. I'm going to apply battery to the car for the first time. I'm going to reattach a lot of these grounding pins that I've detached. I'm going to put power to the car. I might bring the dashboard back over here and plug in the starting button. And I'm going to try and turn on the car so I can operate the seats and move the seat forward. It's a long shot. Okay, so we got some good signs. There's power to the car. When I hit the unlock button, you can actually hear the doors go for the unlock mechanism. So this is our engine start stop button. I pulled it out of the dashboard. I'm gonna find the corresponding wire here, and then I'm gonna go ahead and plug it in and try and turn the car on, which should then let me move the seat. Something happened. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Still won't let me move these stupid seats. Well, apparently all turning the car on does is the windshield wipers. Come on. All right, with that not working, I have to find the motor. I think I located it. I think it's basically like 2/3 of the way through the seat. I found a large horizontal motor that looks like it has a shaft driving to the rail. So that's what I'm gonna go after. I'm gonna try and get its wires out and exposed and hot wire it. All right, we got the seat out of there. I had to hot wire the motor, got it hot wired, moved it totally forward, and then I was able to flip those positive and negatives around and move it backwards a little bit and get the seat completely out of there. So that is now over there and technically for sale. While I was doing that, Eric has decided that he's gonna start harvesting the fuel system components. So we have these lids on top of the fuel tank. There's one there and one there. We don't really know what that one does, but that one's where the fuel pump is, and it's got the fuel sending hose, all that good stuff. That's where the fuel comes out of. So Eric's working on spinning those top hats off so we can inspect what's in there and then transfer it over to our new fuel system. All right, we got the fuel system out of the car. So what you see right down here is the fuel tank that we're actually gonna take out right now to do some exploratory surgery on it. But anyways, so in here you had a fuel pump, and then on the other side you had the fuel sending unit, and it has like a pressure sensor and some other stuff like that. These are the little rings that go around here, and we'll talk about those in a second. And those are the end caps that close on. So let me show you the fuel pumps. This is the main fuel pumping unit. So there's two units, they both look like this. One of them does the pumping, so there's two pumps inside here. It runs like that around to the other one, which looks very similar to that. And that just has a fuel pressure regulating unit, and then it goes up and it has a little fuel pop-off thing at the top. It also has a fuel gauge. So these are both sitting on our fuel cell. And the issue that we have is there's no really good way to be able to put these in the fuel cell. Well, we had two issues. One is this one broke during installation, so you have to spin this metal ring. It was really, really hard to spin. As we spun it, it actually twisted the plastic to the point where it broke. So I have to buy a new one, that's a bummer. Hopefully I can just buy the top section, but I'm not really sure. Any of you crazy BMW parts guys, if you know how I could get just the top section, hit me up. But if not, these aren't too expensive. So anyways, we did a lot of research, and it looks like you really gotta like stay with OEM on the fuel pump system. So we're gonna. So that little ring that I was showing you earlier, we need to actually get one of those and we need to make one of those out of aluminum, and then we'll mount one of those things right here. Let me go get the other one. Okay, this is the regulating unit. So this is about how we're gonna do it. We're gonna mount the fuel pumping unit about right here. So it's gonna go down and around like that. All these hoses are gonna come down into this thing, and this is the regulating unit right here, and it's gonna come off to our fuel line that's gonna go back up to the engine. So it's emulating the whole BMW system, BMW OEM system, except it's all just housed in this new aluminum fuel tank. So what we need to build are some necks that have the right type of connection piece, which is not too high tech, that go onto here. Now the neck isn't anything that's too high tech. It's just a nice lip with a little groove in there that holds a gasket, and then this threaded ring goes around that, and then you tighten on that metal clamp there, and then we'll get a gasoline tight seal on our fuel tank. Now to build one of these, to emulate one of these, we need a good example, and to do that we think we need to cut one of these off. So what we're in the process of doing right now is Eric is lifting the car up so we can salvage, or putting the car down I should say, so we can pull the fuel tank out of the car, drain it of all the fuel, and then cut one of those rings off of that fuel tank. All right, so this is a BMW gas tank, and these little rings right here are what we need to emulate, so we're going to want to go ahead and cut those off. Before we do that, we're going to have to siphon this out and recycle all the gasoline, or put it out to the curb for recycling. So we're going to go ahead and do that, get that cleaned up off camera, obviously. One question I had for anybody is, does anybody know when you go under the passenger side rear fender what this guy is? We're assuming it's a part of the evap system, or EGR or whatever, you know, those green piece systems that they put in these cars. It seemed to be connected to a couple of lines that were vent lines. Those look like vent lines, and then coming around, but then it also has this big cream colored hose that runs God only knows where, down there and up, I don't know, back and forth. I don't know. I'm really hoping that's not a main fuel line. But anyways, if anybody knows, please let me know. I am quite curious. Okay, we're gonna get this thing drained and cut a hole in it. Cut out its hole. Forgot to turn the camera on when we did the dangerous part, but we drained it and then we cut a hole in it, and I'll show you the results of that inside. Okay, so this is the neck that I kind of cut off of the fuel tank, and you can see how it's got that lip around it that I was talking about earlier. It's a little bit hard to see, but imagine we weld this into the tank. Now we're going to build this out of aluminum, and it's going to be a little bit taller and it's going to be at an angle, but we weld that into our fuel tank. We cut a hole into the fuel tank, then this plastic ring goes around it, and this ring actually has threads on it for the fuel tank to lock into. So then we place the gasket on the inside lip there, so that's our gasket to keep all the gasoline out, and then the fuel tank or the fuel pump or that piece, whichever one it is, slides in through that, seals on the top there, and then we have a ring that we slide over the top of it to basically screw it down. Bob's your uncle. We've got our fuel system. So that's how we're going to do the fuel system. Again, bummer that thing's cracked, so I need to buy a new one or buy a whole new main fuel pump system. And then we're going to need to get the exact right size hole drill to drill holes in this aluminum. And then Eric is going to try and get us one of these guys machined, a little piece of aluminum tube that's got a lip on it just exactly like this, machined out on a lathe, so we can weld it into our fuel tank. And that is the only way that we're going to get a fuel system in here. So we're going to be working on doing that quickly behind the scenes. We've mocked up the fuel tank location, so when I get time tomorrow, I will cut these ridiculous frame rails out of back here. I'm going to extend them back to the mounting points right here where they go, and then that will give us a nice flat space to be able to mount our fuel cell. We actually are probably going to flip it 180 degrees from how it is now around, so that these two things end up over there, but we can't actually use them either way because our fuel line comes out right here. So I hope you guys are getting the idea of how this all works. We have to keep it all stock though, because if you deviate too much from this pattern, as far as I know, the BMW system gets really mad. So we're not going to want to do that. Alright guys, that is a wrap on this one. I want to work longer, but I am covered in gasoline and super tired, so I'm going to go get home and get cleaned up. Fun thing to think about, get the fuel cell mounted, get that fuel system set back up. Run the wiring, steering wheel, gas pedal, brake pedal, steering column mounted in the car, plug everything in that's in it right now, and we will be able to start the car up. If that doesn't excite you, I don't know what will. Actually, I know a lot of things that probably would, but you can't put them on YouTube. Alright guys, that's it. Please remember to check out our app, D is for Drift. I'll put a link in the description, and also hit the subscribe button here, and you can find us in more places by going to our Instagram. It's B is for Build on Instagram. There's also a link in the description. Thanks so much guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace!